Basketball is a contact sport that's only getting stronger, faster, more athletic, older. And there are really good players out there, maybe even yourself, who will never reach their potential because they can't match the strength of the game, which sucks, right? But being skinnier is not a death wish. I promise you guys it. But it does take a deep understanding and a really good feel for how to create force, how to leverage your body. And this is something that took me years to understand as a player, but even as a coach, building this with athletes. And this is the concept of being wiry strong. In other words, skinny, but able to leverage yourself well, and as a result, absorb contact well and even create it well. And we've all seen and even played against the players who are skinny as hell, but they come out and they start bumping the crap out of you. And you're wondering, like, how is this guy doing this? How is he creating so much force when he doesn't have that much mass? So in this video, I'm gonna show you guys how hoopers who weigh significantly less than their opponents can not only hang, but create advantages with contact. And then some exercises to work on all this. Because I can sit here and tell you to eat more and to lift harder. And of course, that's a big part of it. Like, try to add some mass if you are a skinnier player. But I've also worked with so many players who do that, and I see them do it, and they just can't gain that much weight. It's just their build. So they have to turn their attention in more creative ways while chipping away at gaining a little bit of weight. So they got to turn their attention to more creative ways, which we'll talk about right now. So let's get to it. Now, pretty much all this comes down to is physics. So timing, impulse, the direction of force. And if you haven't taken a physics class, I'll try to explain this very simply to you. With the first thing being the timing component. Think about this. Basketball is a very dynamic game, right? It's not sumo wrestling where both people stand there with their feet on the ground and a super consistent base of support so they're able to push through the ground the entire time. No, on defense and offense, you are jumping, running, transitioning from maybe a slide to a sprint. So it's very difficult to have a consistent base of support. And more often than not, when you are moving, at least one, if not both feet are gonna be off the ground. So your key as a player who can't rely on brute force is to find the defender when they're at their most compromised. And this often comes down to two things. One, again, as I alluded to, their feet are off the floor. If you push someone who can't use the floor as a base, but you can, well, it's significantly easier to move them. It evens the playing field a bit, and you're catching them when they're at their worst. But the key here is getting them moving first. So many players who are a little bit skinnier or weaker, whatever you want to call it, try to bump stationary defenders rather than getting them moving. Shea is one of the best I've ever seen at this, where every bump is amplified because defenders are always just a bit compromised. He times it up just right when they're mid-stride, maybe flipping their hips, lunging to cut him off, repositioning their feet. And as a result, even if they're bigger than him, he's able to be the one to send them backwards or out of the picture just enough to create space. Now, this is something that happens so quickly that it's very difficult, I'd even argue impossible, to think about and execute. It's not like you can slow the game down or freeze it and go, all right, well, his foot is coming up off the ground now, I'm gonna bump him. No, it just happens too fast for that. So this is truly a feel thing. Something that you can't be taught, but you can learn over time through experience, which is why we constantly put our players in situations where they can play around with bump timing, physicality, timing up when they create angles on their drive so that over time it becomes natural. They learn through experience, and you need to do this as well. There is zero shot that you can train on air all the time, do the entire offseason against cones, and then come back and be a functionally strong player. It just doesn't work like that. Second, in terms of timing, you want to hit when their momentum is not moving towards you, but rather away from you or perpendicularly to you. Again, this comes down to physics with the concept of momentum. Momentum is a product of mass, so how large you are, times velocity, how fast you're going in a specific direction. Mass, again, you can't control. If you're a skinnier guy, it's fixed, but velocity, you can. And the most important thing about velocity is that it's a vector. Or in other words, again, for those who haven't taken a physics class, or maybe you've just forgotten, I know it's kind of boring stuff. With a vector, direction matters. So without going into the science too much, if you guys are both moving like this, well, the one who is more massive, who is heavier, probably the other person, is going to win that collision. But if you can get the defender's velocity moving this way, and then now you bump them, okay, well, your momentum is just gonna add to where they're already going. This takes creativity and really flipping the defender's hips to get them moving like this, slightly away from you, as well as knowing exactly when to bump. And realistically, most times what's gonna happen is this. You guys are moving this way, so maybe hip to hip with a little bit of space in between you. And what I mean by perpendicular is as they're going this way to cut you off, you initiate that, and now you're the one to hit with your momentum, and that is how you create space with contact. You win that contact battle. You initiate it when they are not moving towards you. So you being the one to close this gap is unbelievably important here. Bonus points too if you can bump them a little bit upwards to raise their center of mass and put them in a tougher position to recover, which is one reason why smaller guards can feel so strong, because they have a low center of mass that can really hit upwards and lift bigger guys off of the ground. All right, so that's the more foundational stuff. Next, I want to discuss sequencing and energy transfer. The primary concept is that this, a straight line where force goes from the ground reaction force, in other words, how the foot hits the ground, all the way through the body into the external object, is way better than this, where you may really exert yourself, but your ankle isn't strong enough to use all the energy from the floor. Maybe your hips don't channel that energy well enough to the midsection. It's truly one big chain from the ground, and if you efficiently channel your force from the floor into the object you're bumping, every bit of strength that you have goes into the bump. Now, if there are holes in that chain, you lose energy. And the best part about this is that you don't have to be bulky to be strong and stiff through this chain. Instead, it requires one, really robust ankle stiffness. So on all these bumps, you can see how hard they attack this floor. They don't lose energy at the ankle. Two, the ability to feel and find the positions that are most efficient to move another human. This is why we do a ton of manual strength work like this in our warm-ups. So some sumo strength vibes here to help athletes develop feel for how to best leverage their body and maximize the power that they do have through that chain, as well as plyos, and specifically multi-directional plyos, to build elasticity and stiffness, which again, are not reliant on bulkiness, but can be just as powerful for hitting and resisting defenders. So velocity, rather than relying on the mass part of momentum. And you can develop speed through elasticity and pop, as well as efficient energy transfer. Next concept here, again, back to physics, is impulse. Impulse is the change in momentum over time. And the key takeaway here is that longer periods of force application can often do better for us, especially as smaller players, than super high peak force collisions. So in other words, to use my hands as an example again, when you have less mass than somebody else, you are better off keeping contact and pushing versus relying on one collision, which is gonna allow them to just peak their momentum and they'll probably beat you. So instead of constantly trying to bump and hit really hard all at once, think about trying to stay connected and apply force to the defender for longer than they do. This is why guys like Kyrie and others are so successful with veer steps and just trying to stay connected to push through on straight line drives, because if they try to go with more of a collision, they don't have enough mass for that. But by lengthening the time that they're connected here, it buys them time to displace them and with more control too. So try to stay connected and push. Don't just collide with defenders. Next up, leverage the arms. Now, if you're a sensitive player or fan that doesn't want to accept the fact that a little arm battle isn't going to get called at really any level, you can close your eyes here, fast forward, block it out. But we actually empower players to use their arms to fight a bit, because it's going to happen. You're going to get hand checked. You're going to get grabbed. You're going to be allowed to fight or fight back. And we want to develop strength and a feel for how to leverage the arm battle to win positioning and gain leverage. So this right here looks like some martial arts stuff, and it definitely exaggerates what this arm battle will be. But the idea is straightforward. Can we learn to use an arm fight to get the defender's momentum moving this way and project us this way? And then do it discreetly, either shielding off or actively pulling ourselves forward and then backward. Try it out, it's fun too, I promise. And then second to last here, we want to be able to leverage their forward leans. When players are physical with us, they often end up leaning into us a bit. It's natural. That's the easiest way, really only way, to apply force in a more static or standstill situation. We got to take advantage of this. So we play a lot of 1v1s where the defense is starting physically, maybe leaning into the offense, pushing them a bit. And the offense is learning how to stay stable, as well as get out of the way to allow the defender to fall this way and use evasion to counter strength. And then the last piece here is your mindset. So many smaller or skinnier players tend to get over aggressive because they think that's how they win, by getting out of control and just colliding. Now, when you're training and experimenting with this, I'm not mad at it. I actually like sometimes being out of control, because as you overexert yourself, stay super aggressive, you condition yourself to get aggressive, but you also screw up. You fall over, you're out of control, you get bumped really hard, and you need these errors to learn. And then over time, as you continue to play ones and try to be super physical, apply this into your small-sided games, you start to find that balance between aggression and control. Because as you can see, it's less about just pure aggression and more of an art. And again, if you're able to find that balance between aggression and control and getting repetition with this on a daily basis, you're gonna be able to maximize your build, your strength, and get insanely basketball strong. Now, if you guys made it this far, first off, thank you. I appreciate you watching all the way through. If you're interested in working on this, definitely check out our virtual academy. I would definitely suggest our Ultimate Athleticism program to help you become more basketball strong, as well as the Point Guard program, which has some more live training in it. It's gonna help you develop this feel. And if this is a problem for you on defense too, Lockdown Defender program here is elite for it. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time.